Hey guys, welcome back to Choosing Recovery. I'm Olivia.
And I am Scotty.
And today we have something completely different for you guys, but so very, very exciting. It's life past addiction, it's success within recovery, and we are bringing some amazing people from down in Florida to share their stories with you. Drug of choice.
Drug of choice. So my primary drugs of choice, because it was multiple, was methamphetamine, Xanax, and opiates.
Okay. So what age did you start using?
12. Not my drugs of choice, but I started with using substances around 12.
Okay.
Yeah. Weed, and then it progressed into harder.
Okay. So what influenced or started your drug use? Was there anything that happened, or?
I mean, not one particular, catalytic situation, but I come from a family of addiction. So my grandparents were alcoholics. My mother's still in active addiction. My father's an active alcoholic. I've got severe mental illness, depression, suicide, and addiction runs in my family from maternal and paternal. So I think just environmental.
Yep.
For me, my sisters, though I'm the oldest of three, and my sisters aren't addicts at all. They don't even smoke cigarettes, so
Yeah.
blessed. Yeah.
So how long did you use for? Since you were 12?
I've used pretty consistently from 12, 13 until 22, and then I started my recovery journey at 22. But with relapses, and I got clean at 28.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, that is awesome. So, who else did your addiction affect?
Oh, everybody. Everybody. I was obviously sitting right next to Ashley when she was recording. Like me, I knew my addiction was affecting people. I just didn't give a fuck. I just didn't care. I knew it. Especially, because there's, and Ashley spoke about this, our group of friends. So there's 4 of us. And 2 of them aren't addicts. But they all come young, Ashley included, probably 17, 18. Well, maybe between 17 and 19, they'd be like, oh, if you're coming, you have to check your purse because you get too fucked up. And we can't have, and I'm like, so I guess I gotta put my drugs in my bra, man. But it was, so, my friend, it affected my family, but I had a very, entitled attitude with my family, because I'm like, y'all are fucking drug addicts too, stop, stop, and it's do as I say, not as I do, although I have a family of addicts, they were never, it was always okay, you see the struggles that we've gone through, we don't want you guys to go through that, so there was a lot of anger and resentment there for a long time, until I got clean, obviously, but when it started affecting my friends, we've been friends since middle school, but I still, at that point, was okay, well, I'm just misunderstood, or, it's not as bad as you think it is, just let me live.
Right. So, what led you to get clean? Was there anything that happened?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a few, I'm gonna grab my coffee now. So there's a few circumstances, so,
there's your Starbucks.
So this final time, I was in a really bad relapse, a 2-year relapse, and I hadn't spoken to my children in 2 years, and at that point, I was pregnant again. I had no prenatal care, and I didn't even know how far along I was. I had cut off my house arrest bracelet and was running on a second charge in a second state. So I was like a fugitive at this point. And then I'm like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? And then my oldest son's father died of an OD.
Wow.
And that was okay, all of these things plus that one thing, I said, okay, I have to get my shit together. So I got clean.
Wow.
And that was August 27th, 2016.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Wow, yes. So how are you staying clean today?
I really think it's so important to nurture your recovery relationships, right? So my network, I obviously go to meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I do NA, I do meetings. I have one sponsor right now because I'm so busy, so it's all I can take. But I do service work in that regard. I work with my sponsor, step work, meetings, and that's how I stay clean.
So important to
there's no
give.
real other way around it for me.
Yeah.
So important to give back. All we ever did was take. I do service work, commitments, things like that. It gives you responsibility, especially when you're in early recovery. It's still hard to hold a job. I think for the newcomers to see that, to start getting learning how to give back, I think that is a fundamental key into getting clean and sober.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Good for you.
So what is your best accomplishment within your recovery?
I think for me, my best accomplishment is mindset, really. My ability to really stay in a constant place of reframing my thoughts, because I wasn't always like this. I was severely depressed. I was self-mutilating, very just an apathetic individual. I didn't believe in God. I had no purpose in life. I was just like, why am I here? Life's happening to me type of outlook. So definitely my mindset, because I'm the complete polar opposite of that. Literally, listen, if anybody watching this is an entrepreneur, they understand that you must be a glutton for punishment if you're in business for yourself, because it is oh my God, 1 minute you're super, everything's great, and then the next minute you're oh my God, this is the worst idea, I'm gonna lose everything, what the fuck's going on? So I have to always make sure that my mind is always solution oriented, and I'm always in a place of ownership, of my circumstances, so I have the power and control, what I can anyway in that regard.
That was well said. I like that. So if you could say something to someone that is still out there using today, what would it be?
Just get honest with your circumstance, dude. Get honest. What's really fucking going on? What are you really? Just get honest with your circumstance. Get honest with what you're doing. Is your current drug use contributing anything positive to your life or to your relationships?
I love that. Give them a question back. That's great.
And that's our whole goal here, is to just show we all have the same story, just with different events, and that people are they're not alone. So we really hope to inspire people here and to show that if it's possible for anybody.
It is. We 100% believe that too, and that's our mission. We aim to inspire.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you because that's all it takes is 1 minute of awareness.
Yes.
Because we're so sick, we don't even realize that we're doing anything wrong. It's subtle, it's subtle, but if you have an awareness, of the pain that you're causing yourself, right? Because that's what it's about. I'm doing this to me. Whatever happens to me in the trial or whatever the circumstance that I thought happened to me, I'm no longer in that position, and now my life is a literal shit show because I'm hurting myself. So you go, I'm hurting myself, I can stop hurting myself.
Yep.
I love that. Well said. So if you could say something to a family member of someone that is struggling with an addiction, what would you say to the family member?
I would say stop enabling 100%. An addict cannot survive without an enabler, an active addiction. And seek therapy for yourself. I think it's super important. The sickness runs into the family, and what I mean by that is we want to fix, right? It turns into a super codependent fucking situation most of the time, So for the addicts that are lucky enough to have family members that aren't addicted, they're fucking full of shit. They're lying. Cut them off. Stop paying their phone bill. Stop paying the insurance. Stop bailing them out of jail.
Yep.
If you have a marshman after, you can order them to treatment. Go down there and order them to fucking treatment.
That is true. Yep.
And that's it. Like, they're never gonna get better as long as the family is trying to. You cannot fix the addict. They have to fix themselves in the short period. But whatever is supposed to be said, I guess, is gonna come through. So
Yeah.
So I'll be 33 in a couple days, and I am the oldest of two. And like I said, addiction really runs through my family. So I think that's important to say. I didn't really have a ton of guidance. I know my mom thought that she was doing the best she could with her own addiction. So my mother isn't like the type of addict that I am, in the sense that, like, bitch, I will be panhandling on the side of the fucking road, homeless as fuck. You know, my mother was a very high functioning addict, and her drugs of choice were like crack, and like she, you know, did the weekend thing, and she lost custody of us several times. My mom, you know, the end of the story with that, she's selling for child neglect and all that type of stuff. But that's a really tough subject for me and my mom. She's still active.
Yep.
And I have to remember that she's an addict, you know, but I think when it's so close and you're in recovery, your sister, my aunt, she just picked up 13 years in Narcotics Anonymous as well. So I'm like, dude, people are getting clean over here. Like, act like you don't know what's happening. You know, just the victim mentality. But that's what process has her journey, you know, and it's super difficult for me because just the mental deterioration. She's mentally ill with bipolar and all that, and she's like hoarding now, and it's just not, it's really not good. So pretty normal. My mother's addiction didn't spiral really out of control until I was probably about 8 or 9. So I had somewhat of a normalcy, and I feel like the really pivotal years of development. My mother was home. There was stability there for a good portion of my childhood. I have good memories and all that stuff. But really 8 or 9 is when I noticed like the dynamic and aspect of my life had completely shifted. You know, my mom was like the type of addict that said, "Oh, I'm going to the store for milk, bitch, it's gone for 3 days," type of shit, you know. And the abandonment issues ultimately grew into like anxious attachment that I carried with me through all my relationships later on in life. You know, I was attracted to very toxic situations naturally, and I'm a 9th grade dropout. I think that's important to share too, because you think, oh, you're going to drop out of school and this and that, you're never going to do anything. I don't advise it, obviously. The message is that it doesn't matter the circumstances. I really believe that you can, you know, walk through any of that stuff. So I dropped out in the 9th grade. I went to my first rehab, just give you a little bit of history. Went to my first rehab at 15, had my first major overdose at 15. And I was like, went to rehab, and going to rehab as a teenager is tricky. I'm not someone that's like, oh, go to rehab, you'll be fine. Like, no, man. Like, and if you're anything like me, I've been to residential treatment 9 times. Literally only graduated 2 successful. I'm a runner. I'm a runner. I would get caught. I started getting caught up with the cops, y'all, like probably 13, 14 years old, just doing dumb shit, breaking in, trying to smoke weed in somewhere, vandalism. You know, I was a very angry, hurt, you know, adolescent. And I had a lot of entitlement issues. Depression was something that I really struggled with through my adolescence. And I overcame my depression issues in my early 20s. I was on all the meds. They had me on Prozac and Wellbutrin, all this shit. I was a heavy cutter, so in and out of the psych ward through most of my teenage years. It was like just a normal thing for me. So I really didn't realize I had a problem until I was 22. And I was pregnant. And couldn't stop using. So pregnancy is a huge part of my story. I have 4 living children. I've been pregnant 9 times. I've had a few abortions and miscarriages. I also had a stillborn. So you can get through that stuff too. And I was 22 and I'm like doing IV drug user all the way, hardcore IV drug user. And I couldn't stop using. And so I didn't get prenatal care with that pregnancy until I was probably 6 or 7 months pregnant. And where I was in my addiction is I didn't want children. Didn't want children, but God knew what I needed better than me always, right?
Yeah.
So I said, oh shit, I have a problem. Like maybe you guys are right. Like maybe I have a problem. And I got myself put on the waiting list for my first voluntary residential treatment. So here in Florida, we have something called the Stewart-Marchman Act. I know it's not something that happens in like every state, only a few states have it, but in the state of Florida, if you have a loved one that is using drugs, you can have them court ordered to treatment. And I think it's a fabulous thing. Obviously, when you're getting Marchman active, you're like, oh, what the fuck? Because you get arrested if you run or you leave treatment, that you're going to jail.
Yep.
Like, there's just no way around it. So I've been Marchman active a ton of times. That's how I was trying to treat my mother with Marchman active. So I went to treatment, and that was a pretty long-term treatment. I was there for 9 months. And I thought, for sure, I'm going to get clean. I know I need to be clean now. I have a kid. I don't want my kid going through what I went through. But I didn't fully surrender to the fact that, like, I knew I couldn't, like, shoot drugs up anymore. But I'm like, dude, why can't I just, like, drink like a normal person? So that's my thing. And, like, that's how my disease will talk to me, will tell me that I can just drink. Because drinking was, like, never a problem for me. It's, like, all the heavy-duty narcotics, right? And then obviously I learned the lesson that we all learn. It's like, I mean, for me, I have to be completely abstinent. I can't use any mood or mind altering drugs. I will use pre-workout. Okay? Like, I swear to God, it's facts. I will. I would be like, oh, I need this pre-workout with me in my car in case I need, like, pre-workout. Like, no. Like, no.
I get it.
Have you ever tried pre-workout?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You get lit. You know? I'm into it, but I know these things. So, I did the little 9 months with relapse, whatever, and then eventually went back out, and I got pregnant again. Had 24 with my second son, Oliver, and I said, okay, you know what, I need to get clean. So that was the same situation, used until 7 months pregnant, got clean, really surrendered at this point, was working the program, and I was really involved. I was doing H&I, I was clean, I got 2.5 years clean, and I relapsed, which was about a 6-month process before I actually picked up. And I'm really grateful that I went through that relapse, although that relapse, they tell us, right, that our disease is progressive, but until you get any sort of time and go back out, I don't think you'll fully really understand unless you just decide to say, oh, I'm going to take it from the predecessors or these people in the media that are sharing that, like, hey, don't go back out, it's going to get worse. Because, like, I'm going to tell you, it gets so much worse. From the place that I was when I decided to get clean, I couldn't have imagined. Like, I didn't really experience homelessness or anything at that point. I never had DCF involvement, right? Because I skated through that, because by the time I delivered my first child, DCF came in because I failed my drug test. And I don't know if they do that where you are here in Florida, because we have such a high rate of addiction that, like, whether you're an addict or not, like, bitch, you're getting drug tested and deliver it, maybe.
They should. They don't.
And of course I failed, and they're like, oh, we're gonna take your kid or whatever. But I was like I was already on a waiting list, and they said, okay, you're fine. They never opened the case. So, where was I? Okay, so having clean time and relapsing. So, like I said, nothing really, it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as it could get. So, I wasn't a felon or anything. I hadn't been arrested, misdemeanor stuff but nothing crazy, nothing like career altering, you know. And man, it was the mindset. So to lose all my material things took time because I had 2 years of building stuff. I had money and I had a house, and that took a while for me to lose. But instantly, my mental state, it was like I never stopped using. And my kids, because of the support network that I built around me from being in recovery, my kids were taken instantly. And I couldn't get myself to even complete the case plan. I couldn't even get myself to go to court. You know what I mean? I wasn't even going to court. I was completely like fucking out there. My mental state was 5-inch. It was out there. So I ran from myself. You know, I knew, I can't explain to you knowing what to do and still not even being able to do it. You're watching your whole entire life that you built completely fall apart before your eyes and crumble to the ground, and you can't do anything about it because you're an active addiction. And like that is just the worst feeling. So I know that I needed that for the rest of my life, for my journey, to know that, bitch, like, you can relapse if you want to go back out and think that you can like do this or whatever, but like remember that like you literally could not get back for 2.5 years.
Right.
And the damage that I caused in my life in that 2.5 year span, I became a felon in 2 states, lost my kid, my one son still isn't even home. That's been 6 years now. He doesn't even know his mom. It's like, it's fucked. There's damage I'm going to be repairing from that relapse for the rest of my life, probably. You know, and so it's so important that you think, you know, I didn't really get 100% honest with the people that I needed to get honest with about my feelings when I relapsed. I talked to the people in my life that I knew didn't. It was complete manipulation. And yet when I think back on it, I go, oh my God, I'm so sick. I spoke to the people that I knew didn't understand addiction and would co-sign my relapse. And I did. I had people that were like, you know what? I think you'll be fine. Girl, you're going to be fine. Like, you got that. Like, and guess what? Like, if it gets a little out of hand, then, like, you know what to do. But, like, what I'm going to tell you is that even if you know what to do, does not mean that you can get clean again. It doesn't mean that you will get clean like that. And it took what it took. It took two felony fugitive warrants, being pregnant with no prenatal care, people dying. It took like so much for me to even get to another bottom to where I you know, thought that I even had the courage to come back, because I was in such a low spot when I got clean again. That I didn't even care. It wasn't like, oh, the guilt and the shame or what are people going to say. I didn't care. So I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Being homeless, there is no worse feeling in the world than being completely addicted to drugs, literally living on the street, pregnant as fuck, and literally looking over your shoulder every 5 minutes because I think you're a straight fugitive. You know? And, you know, it doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter if that's your current circumstance and you're thinking that you don't know if there's a way out or like, what are you going to do? I promise you, if you just take the step to get honest and take ownership, right? So what's the steps that have to happen? You have to say, okay, I have to take complete full ownership of my addiction. Like, I'm completely powerless over my addiction. And like, the only person that has any power to do anything about it is me, it's yourself. You know, and thank God for the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous and all these other 12-step programs that, you know, give us a solid step-by-step foundation and platform to like rebuild ourselves, you know, in that safety, you know. And it was a scary process getting clean again this time, because I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was going to have to go to jail. You know what I mean? And, you know, the miracles that have happened in my life is I didn't have to go to jail for any length of time. You know what I mean? I did end up having my daughter in jail, though that was never yet. You know, that,
Yeah.
don't recommend that. Having a kid in jail, like, no. It was like, no, it's not the move. But, you know, that's where my addiction takes me.
Mhm.
You know, it takes me to having kids in jail, stealing, becoming a criminal. You know, I become a complete thief. And like, what can I take? Where can I? You know what I'm saying? It's just so sick. The lies, the manipulation, the self, you know, degrading things that you do. It's just terrible. You know, and the life that I live today. Already 4 years clean, because I go, oh my God, like I have so much of my life like to live, you know, and the things that I've accomplished and like walked through, you know, I'm completely off probation now this year, so I'm off probation, you know what I mean, like I'm good, you know, I have an understanding with my son and building that relationship, but that's just a consequence, you know, and I can't blame anybody, you know, but myself for that. And that's something really hard that I have to face every day. But I do know without a shadow of a doubt, if I don't stay clean, I'm never gonna have the opportunity to mend that relationship, whether he comes home full time or not. Yep. Because the facts are he's gonna become an adult one day and he's gonna want answers from me. And like bitch, I better be there. You know, I better be there and I better be clean. Yeah. You know? And, you know, but I have my 3 kids home. I'm an entrepreneur, which being a felon, right? It's like what I've learned is take your circumstance and how can you turn it into an opportunity. Yes. Because if I wasn't a felon, listen, because my background is sales. I'm a heavy sales. Before I relapsed, I was like in corporate sales. Awesome. And, I couldn't do that, you know, this time around. So I was forced to become an entrepreneur. So I'm, in a way, I'm grateful I'm a felon. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Are you crying? Yeah. I'm crying over there. She's crying over me now. You know, but I really feel, you know, purposeful today. I have a passion. And I made a post earlier today that, like, I think one of the greatest gifts that I've received so far in recovery is the opportunity to discover my talents and my plates. Yes. You know what I mean? Starting recovery life has been a very scary journey, you know. Owning a clothing line is something that I've always wanted to do since I could really, literally imagine. And it was just a dream that I just said, oh, maybe, well, it's not going to obviously happen in this lifetime. Like, how can that happen? And, you know, getting clean and discovering myself and having the ability to like walk through fear, you know, I took a leap and I said, you know what, I'm gonna just do this. And it's like turned already into almost, it's like we're just like rounding in at 3 months. It's like bigger and better than I could have ever imagined.
Good for you guys.
So cool. And I go, okay, like this is for a reason. And so I find myself so grateful that I'm an addict. So grateful for the trauma that I've overcome. So grateful for the trauma that I've even re-traumatized myself. Yep. You know, because it's about carrying that message. It's about spreading hope. And so I just aim to inspire people to not only get clean, but get clean and go for your dream.
Yes. You're so inspiring. Yes. You're making me emotional again.
Get clean and not aspire to like be there. Everybody has that passion burning something, and if that fire went out in you, take the time to rediscover that, because I promise you have a purpose and you have a place and you have a story that's going to impact other people. Yeah. Which is what I really believe it's about. Like, it's just about like uplifting each other, man. And that's what I'm here to do.
And I think that when
exactly, we're trying to expand, we're trying to reach out, we're trying to give hope to people, we're trying to, you know, but this is also a part of us giving back, you know, because like you said, sharing the message is giving back.
That's so amazing.
So.
Well, I love what you guys are doing, and
same.
It's definitely God's purpose, you know what I mean, especially the circumstances, and that's what you guys did. You created an opportunity, you know, to carry the message, and it's going to help people. It's got to.
Yeah.
It's got to. Lalita will read me like people who are like super grateful for us, and I'm like, is that really like? It's still like sometimes it's like I struggle with the higher power thing, but I'm like, wow, like something's got to be like guiding this, you know, because you guys are just doing the damn thing, and it's like you see a need and you see like a lack, and you're like, okay, well, like what did we say? We said, why not us? That's what we said. Yeah, why not us?
Yeah.
Why not us? Because it's not just a clothing line for us, right? I mean, so what sparked the initial thing is I'm like, okay, I'm like I already said, I'm huge into fashion. I'm just huge, and I'm like, I really, recovery is so important to me, and I like to represent. I'm like a huge representing of like, you know, your clothing is a part of your identity. It's how you express yourself, you know. And I'm like, dude, there's like recovery clothes, like nothing wrong with trying it.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, dude, would it be crazy to like create like a super contemporary like streetwear recovery brand?
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I just said, I was like, weeks and weeks. Absolutely not. You know, what does fashion do? Fashion inspires
Changes.
people.
Yeah.
It's an art form. It's a form of expression. People see something and they go, I want to be that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They see clothes on influencers and they go, I want to be that person. I want to represent what they represent because I vibe with it. And it's like, it's so much bigger, like you said. It's so much bigger than a business. It's so much bigger than an expression. It's a message. And the people that reach out to us and they say, bro, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. We go in our lives and people, they're in our lives and they're like, they were not clean. Like these people were like these kids, like these, it's just, I get so emotional because it's like, okay, it's that push that I need. My head will tell me, how big can it really get?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
What's the impact you're really making? Maybe you should do, because I'm also a certified interventionist and a life coach.
Nice.
And
Oh, me too. Well, life coach.
you are?
Yeah, life coach. Yeah.
And so I go, maybe I should just focus on that. You know what I'm saying? And then I get these messages from people in the lives who are like, okay, like I wasn't clean, like I'm struggling, and they come in, they're like day 5, day 6, week 9, like we're fucking doing this, like. And it's like, oh wow, like we are showing people what it's like to be clean and that you can be cool and have fun.
Because it's 2020 and what is society still, we love that. It's 2020 and what is society still teaching our younger generation? That partying is cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Partying is cool, that's where the fun is, that's where you wear the cute outfits, that's what you get ready for, like that's like in the movies and the commercials. I mean, I can't even like, I mean, it's just like past the Disney Channel. I mean, like what?
Yeah.
No! What are they teaching us? So it's like, where can you find something that shows you that you can have fun other ways? Like, kids don't have to be playing beer pong.
Facts.
I don't know. I don't know. I wanted to be a cool kid. I was a cool kid, I thought. But I was a fucking loser.
A cool kid took me to being a twice convicted felon and being fucking my kids in 6 years. Shit. Facts.
Yeah.
That's where the beer pong got from.
And that's the real reality, you know. And I think even like I did like a DARE program when I was in like 6th grade, and they're like, I dare you not to use drugs. I'm like, I will never use drugs, you know. And then all of a sudden I'm like ruining my life, and I end up, you know, like you just end up in a place that you never expected to be over a temporary thing. Like that's what drug use was. It's such a temporary fix of the cycle of just chasing it, and it never did what you needed it to do, you know?
He's just talking.
I know, he's like,
it did provide a solution there for a minute, for literally 1 minute.
yeah, like just a temporary thing, you know?
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your stories.
I loved it. I loved
Yay!
it.
Wasn't that bad, right?
No.
Okay.
You guys did that the same.
It all worked out.